For decades, the house at Hollow Creek stood empty, its rotting shutters banging against broken windows, the paint peeling like old skin. Locals avoided it, claiming it wasn't just haunted, it was hungry. The Martin family ignored the warnings when they moved in. They wanted a fresh start, and the price was too good to resist. On their very first night, the children whispered that they heard someone walking upstairs. Their parents reassured them it was just the pipes settling. But by the third night, the sounds had grown louder, deliberate footsteps pacing the upstairs hallway. Then came the mirror in the master bedroom. At first they noticed faint scratches across the glass, lines that could have been dismissed as age. But the scratches grew into words. "Leave now." The youngest, Emily, said she saw a pale woman in the reflection at night, her eyes hollow, her mouth moving as if she were trying to scream. The Martins tried to ignore it, but the house had other plans. Lights flickered. Furniture dragged itself across the floor in the middle of the night, and the air grew so cold in certain rooms that their breath hung in the air. One night, Emily screamed so loudly that neighbors called the police. She claimed the woman from the mirror had stepped out and stood at the foot of her bed. The breaking point came when the family returned home one evening to find the front door locked from the inside. When they forced it open, the entire living room was overturned, furniture smashed, mirrors shattered, and every wall etched with deep claw marks. They fled that night, leaving everything behind. The house still stands, and locals swear that if you look into its windows after dark, you'll see faces staring back. Some say the pale woman waits in the mirrors, desperate to trade places with whoever is foolish enough to step inside. On Maple Street, an old Victorian mansion looms, its crooked roof and boarded windows making it look like a corpse propped up among modern homes. Few dare enter, but one young man named Lucas did. He needed a cheap room, and when the landlord offered one at an impossibly low price, he took it without hesitation. The room was pristine, almost unnaturally so. The bed sheets were crisp, the furniture polished, the curtains perfectly drawn. But on the very first night, Lucas noticed something strange. The room shifted. The furniture rearranged itself slightly. The bed angled differently than before. The dresser now closer to the door. He thought he was imagining things. By the third night, the walls themselves seemed to move. He went to open the door, but instead of the hallway, it revealed another corridor, long, stretching, unfamiliar. He tried to retrace his steps, but the hallway twisted and looped back on itself. Eventually, he stumbled back into the room, sweating, convinced it was a dream. The next morning, he found deep scratches carved into the floorboards. "You belong here." Each night, the room became more elaborate. Doors appeared where there had been none, leading to impossible spaces. A staircase materialized, spiraling upward into darkness. One night, he opened a door to find a nursery with a crib. Inside was a doll. Its chest rose and fell as though it were breathing. The laughter started soon after, childlike giggles echoing from nowhere. Lucas begged the landlord to let him move to another room, but the man just shook his head and said, "You're already part of it." Neighbors say Lucas vanished within a week. His belongings were left behind, but the room was spotless, as though no one had ever lived there. Those brave enough to enter claim the walls shift when you're not looking. The floorboards creak like footsteps following close behind. And sometimes they hear Lucas's voice whispering for help. On a cliff by the sea stood the old lighthouse, abandoned since the last keeper mysteriously disappeared. Attached to it was a small house, its windows fogged, its doors swollen from years of damp air. Locals avoided it, claiming that the light sometimes turned on by itself, sweeping across the ocean though no one lived there. One foggy evening, Mia, an amateur photographer, decided to explore. She loved capturing abandoned places, and the lighthouse was irresistible. With her camera slung round her neck, she stepped inside. Dust coated everything, and the air was thick with salt and mildew. She began snapping photos, but when she reviewed them, she froze. In the photos were figures, pale men and women, standing in the background. They weren't there when she looked with her own eyes. Their faces were blurred, but their eyes seemed to lock on her through the lens. The deeper she went, the colder it became. Whispers floated through the air, faint at first, then louder, as though calling her name. She climbed the spiral staircase of the lighthouse, each step echoing. Halfway up, she heard footsteps behind her, slow, heavy, deliberate. She spun around. No one was there. Doors slammed on their own. The air grew icy. The whispers turned into screams. Trapped at the top of the lighthouse, she pointed her camera at the darkness. When the flash went off, she saw them. Dozens of figures surrounding her, their hands reaching. The next morning, the lighthouse was silent. Her camera was found at the bottom of the stairs. On its memory card was one final photo. Mia, smiling, eyes wide with terror, ghostly hands gripping her shoulders. She was never seen again. Locals say the light still flickers some nights, as if someone or something still waits inside. In a quiet suburb, the Ellis family bought a modern home with sleek walls, shiny floors, and one strange feature. The house seemed alive. At first, it was subtle. The floors creaked when no one walked on them. The walls sometimes pulsed, almost like a heartbeat. At night, the house breathed, slowly, deeply, as though it were sleeping. Then, as the weeks passed, the breathing grew faster, more agitated. The children complained of whispers coming from the vents, voices calling their names. One night, the youngest child, Sarah, woke screaming. She said a door had opened in her bedroom wall, revealing a hallway that hadn't existed before. At the end of it, she saw a shadow with glowing eyes. When her parents checked, the wall was solid. Soon strange marks appeared, footprints on the ceiling, handprints smeared across the windows from the inside. Doors slammed, furniture shook, and the temperature in the house shifted violently from freezing to boiling. The family tried to leave, but the house resisted. Hallways stretched, staircases twisted into endless loops. Windows showed impossible scenes, forests at night, vast oceans, and sometimes dozens of pale faces pressed against the glass, watching. On their final night, the parents awoke to the sound of breathing all around them. The walls expanded and contracted, louder, faster. The entire house seemed to inhale and exhale, shaking violently. Words appeared on the walls, scratched deep into the plaster. "Stay with us." The Ellis family fled barefoot into the street, leaving everything behind. They never returned. The realtor still tries to sell the house, but no one stays longer than a single night. Those who have tried swear that once you're inside, you can feel the house's breath on the back of your neck, steady at first, then faster, like it's waiting to swallow you whole.